Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm an alcoholic. I do have experience with these steps and the Big Book Step Study process, which I have been working with a Big Book Step Study sponsor. I have made my formal amends. I have financial amends that I continue to make, living amends, as well as a couple of amends that I would like to make if the opportunity arises in the future that people would be so inclined to accept them. And I do practice all of these steps on a daily basis. Very grateful to be here. Thank you for asking me. Okay, so I do have experience with these two steps. I'll just tell you a little bit about me. My favorite subject. So how did I get to Big Book Step Study? I was in another fellowship. I came through the back door of AA. I would easily say I've hit the trifecta and probably have a seat in many different fellowships. The one I was attending regularly for 4 years, I had the opportunity that I heard a person speak who had done this work and said some things that caught my ear, and I decided to go home and prove that person was talking about stuff that wasn't in the book that I had already read. So in any event, it grabbed me. I found out where the meetings were. First one I went to was in Leominster, and a bunch of us went. I went into the meeting. It was a big group. I was very relieved to not have to speak. It was real clear to me that I really didn't have anything to offer because I hadn't worked the steps and I didn't know really much what they were talking about. I also observed quality about what people were sharing, and in many people it appeared as though there was some type of I don't know, I'll call it, like peacefulness, or I don't know what it was. It was something that was attractive to me in any event. So that was it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to those meetings. And so then realized there's one in Worcester. I live in Auburn, and at that meeting, I met my sponsor, who I knew from the other fellowship. I asked her to sponsor me, and she graciously said yes. So basically at that point I started, one of the things that she asked of me was to attend at least one of this type of meeting per week. And so that's what I did. Now at that point in time, I didn't identify as an alcoholic. I didn't believe I was an alcoholic. I thought I was, I thought I was maybe a problem drinker. I'm not even sure I was there. I knew that I could drink a lot. I knew that, and I knew I drank all the time, but I did a lot of things, and that was just one of them. But for me, I found exclusions because I didn't do this, or because this hadn't happened, or I wasn't as bad as that, and because I wasn't, that's okay. I didn't know, and I think everybody else knew around my circle, but I really didn't know that. I knew that like bad things happened, but I didn't equate that to my alcoholism or my behavior as a result of my alcoholism. I had a lot of different like go-tos and more like a victim mentality, or just like denial and fluff things off. So for me, one of the benefits of coming to this meeting and hearing from the textbook is having some real clear, concise like a breakdown of what is an alcoholic. Okay, well, when you don't intend to drink, you do, and when you do, you can't stop, guess what? You might be one of us, and somewhere along the line during my writing, and I think it was just another woman. I don't think it was my sponsor who said it. And she said, Kathy, normal drinkers don't have blackouts. And I thought, they don't? Like legit, like I thought everybody had blackouts. I really did, because I certainly had blackouts from the moment I started drinking, which was, before I was a teenager. And so all through high school, and, and when I drank to like finish whatever I had. It wasn't, it was like totally about like consume and like the oblivion. Loved that whole like out of my mind kind of space to be. And when you're out of your mind, you don't know what happens, and kind of the fallout of that. And so a lot of things happened. I drank until I was 38. And so that's a lot of water under that bridge, you know what I mean? A lot of alcohol under that bridge. I was under a bridge or two, in a porch, and but well, it's not, again, my favorite subject. And some things just go, oh, wow, thank you God, somebody had my back. So in any event, I'm an alcoholic, and I conceded that while working through this process, and it had occurred to me, just another manifestation of my self-centeredness. I remember when I realized I was an alcoholic and doing this work, and I started to fret about, well, oh my God, what are people going to think when I say I'm an alcoholic instead of an addict? Like, I think like everybody's just going to go, oh my God, she switched it up. Like, people are thinking about me, right? And then the thought was, oh, well, maybe I'm just saying that because I want to talk when I get done. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, okay, yeah, all right, that's why you're saying it. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're really not an alcoholic. No, I really am an alcoholic, and I have scores of evidence to support that. But, my alcoholism manifests itself in multiple pathways. Let's leave it at that. So, thankfully, in coming to these meetings, having this structure, having a sponsor who gave me very clear, concise directions, I proceeded to do the reading and do the highlighting and underlining, did the third step with her, did the fourth step, worked through all of that, got the fifth, sixth, seventh, and so then it's time to do the eighth step. And so this is what we're talking about today. So I have a lot of experience with making amends, and so I'll tell you basically what I can tell you as far as kind of the framework for the amends work that I have continued to do. So basically it shook out like this. I was told that to extract the people I had harmed from my inventory. And of course, all of the work is you're praying before you're, setting out to mentally figure this out. Ask God, have Him show me. And so it's like highlighting through the, the work, extract the names. And she had asked me to put them in like my readiness kind of thing. So like now, later, and never. So like rank them. And then she asked me to make a list of harms done or financial amends that I had to make. So, I pray about it, do this, and then, we consult. So the thing that I really appreciate that is really clear here, and it tells us on page 80, before taking drastic action, which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, asked God to help, and then blah, blah, blah. So that was pretty much the format for amends. So what I was asked to do was to pick one. And so you pick a person, and pick an easy one was what was suggested to me for the first one. And I didn't really get like, well, what's an easy one? Because going to someone and saying I've done something wrong, which was my mentality, that's not easy. me? I did something wrong? And that really wasn't what it was about. So pick one, which I did. And once I've picked one, I need to begin to pray for that person. And so I've got this process that I'm praying for this person. So I think of like they're in the chute with the amends that I've got to make, or the living ones that I have today, or the two that I'm kind of in holding pattern. So I'm praying for the person. Then I got to write out what's the harm. So this is the key part. How did I harm them? Like, no, how did you harm them? Never mind a big narrative, like how did you harm them? And then what did I think the amend would be? Like, and so amend is to change. And so this chapter tells us that the point is to, like build an environment that I can be of maximum usefulness to people, to try to build a bridge that, I might be an option in some way to play a part that my creator has in mind, versus like you're going to run the other way when you see me coming, or any variation of things, or I'm going to run the other way when I see you coming. So basically write it out, and then we discuss it. And then once it's pretty well, okay, yep, that sounds good. And then what I need to do is to contact the person and ask their permission, and then set up an appointment with them. And so, contact the person. Some people, I'd go into more detail about what I was doing. Others I would not. It depends on the situation. Just ask for a brief period of time to get together that's convenient for them. I'm in this program, and one of the things as part of my recovery is to go to people that I have an amend that I owe, and you're one of them. And so most people were really okay with that. And the easy ones that I picked were basically people that I did a lot of running with, which I think is interesting in hindsight, and many of them were still running. So that was kind of like an interesting thing to figure out, like, okay, so the rules are you cannot approach a person if you're going to harm them. And you're not going to bring up stuff that's going to harm them, and you're going to keep the focus on yourself. And the idea is to accept responsibility for damage or harm I've done, and offer a sincere reach to the person that, I'm gonna, do my best to, be let's say if I was a shitty friend and, you didn't hear from me forever, or the only time I called you when I was needed something, and so what's the harm? I, didn't think much of you, and obviously I couldn't say it like that, because you can't say things like, well, I thought you sucked, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to be harmful. So it's like, So, some of these things take some prayer and some consultation. And, sometimes people I would approach, I think it was, and again, this is probably self-centered, what a surprise, that people are like, oh, well, we could go to lunch, next week, or, like I'm renewing the relationship, which that's not what I was really trying to do. I was trying to make an amend and kind of, wish you the best, but exit stage left. And this particularly with people who are active, but, God's got a sense of humor, I think. And, one of those people, actually two of those people that I had approached years later had ended up being in my range of impact, and needed help, and offered this program, because that's really all I have to offer. And it is what it is, but that's kind of making amends to them made the opportunity to do that. Not to say that had a happy ending, but it was certainly, who knows what God's got planned today, you know what I mean? So the door's open to people that in the past had been shut. Amends with family members, those were the ones that were probably like really sticking, or like bothering, because one of the things that I've become aware of in doing my own amends, as well as helping people that I sponsor in discerning their amends process, sometimes people want to, like, as soon as they even get to a sniff of amends, like they get somebody they got in mind and they just want to get out there, and I'll just crack that one out there and let's just make the amend now. And it's like, I was told you don't make an amend until you are on this step. That's number one. Number two, you don't make the amend until you've discussed it and prayed about it, etc. So, where people are like, oh, somebody popped up, I think, and again, you're still writing. I think there are ways that we can begin to make ourselves of maximum usefulness to people, but it's not the time to start to think in terms of amends, because, we're not there yet. You don't, build a road and you're just laying out the gravel and put up the signs on it or something. It's like, that's just not how it works. So let's see, I'll tell you about a big amend I had was with my mother. My mother, she was my mother, and there was a lot of, what was the harm? How did I harm her? Well, I harmed my mother because I would just drop out and not, be present in her life, and she didn't know if I was dead. I harmed her by blaming her for everything that happened as a kid. The part that was difficult in discerning the amend, and so again, this required continuous prayer, and I'll tell you that there are amends that you get to the point where it's time to pick up people off a list and make an amend. Well, you might, this is just my experience, I've had to pray for people for like a year or two or longer before it's the right time, and that, again, discerning that, well, is that balking? No, that's really just like, wow, this just doesn't feel right, and I'm really concerned about, how this is going to go down. So what the situation with my mother that made it complicated for me was that, she abused me as a kid. She physically, verbally, emotionally abused me, and so I had this, well, how do I make an amend without bringing that up? You know what I mean? And my mom was a type of person that she didn't want to talk about the past. She didn't want, like if you tried, and this was usually when I was drunk or something, and it's like, no, let's not talk about that, Kathy. You know what I mean? So figuring out, well, how do I do this? So, I prayed about it, wrote about it, talked about it, consulted with others. And so finally I decided that, did you hear the I? I decided that the amend was, I was going to take her to, she liked to go like down to Newport or whatever, and I'd get her out on the side of the on the side of the road watching the ocean, and I'd give her the, Mom is a, this and that, and I know I, harmed you, and I just had this, like image, I think then the seagulls were gonna fly by, and so we got down there, and I'm sitting there and I'm just feeling like, don't say anything, like don't do it, you know what I mean, don't do it. And the framework for that is, at this period of time as well as into today, I'm living a way that I'm having regular contact and disciplines to help me to be clear and have a good relationship with my higher power, whom I call God, which help me to think clearly and have clarity. And I have learned one of those vital sixth sense things is there's like this visceral or gut level, like, you know what I mean? And it's not fear or hunger or whatnot. It's like an instinct that's going, this isn't the way this should go. So, we had a really nice time, and we spent time together, and, there were other times like that, but there was never this, conversation, if you will. So my mom became ill, and she needed health care proxy. And so as a result of having spent more time with her and showing up and whatnot, she asked me, of the 7 kids, and I tell you that not to say, wow, aren't I a great daughter, because I wasn't. I tell you that because that's how the miracles of working this program can change relationships and, really put us in positions to be useful. So I was able to be useful to my mother. I was able to, through the grace of God, to listen to her, to spend time with her, and this was over a couple of years that she had like congestive heart failure and different manifestations of diabetes and obesity, and she was a dry drunk, is what she was, and so the process when she started to decline, and I was able to respect what she wanted and be, let's say, strong for her and the family, that was the amend. You know what I mean? That was the amend. That was it. You know what I mean? Like all of that. It wasn't one, most of my amends aren't like one talk. You know what I mean? Like that's what it kind of might look like or start, but it's this ongoing work and process that I consciously, and sometimes not consciously, thank you God, that it's, be different, and somebody that used to come to this meeting a lot that I really respect would say, things like, well, what would a good daughter act like? You know what I mean? Because I don't know, so I have to ask myself, well, what would a good daughter, what would a good friend, well, do that, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like rocket science. So, she declined. I was there for hospice, her and, my youngest sister, the two of us took care of her. I was one of the administrators of the goodies, which again, the irony of that is, that my head wasn't in the goodie box, and, that wasn't me, that was God, and I was with her, and I was sleeping on the floor in her room when she died, and so I'm grateful for that, because I had no, guilt. I had no, oh, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I got nothing, you know what I mean? I was a good daughter, and I was able, again, through this program, to show up and do something that was hard, and continue. It's not over, you know what I mean? Because I continue to make amends to her by trying to be a better sister to her children, to try to be a kinder aunt. Because these things, as much as I'd like to say come naturally, they don't really most of the time. And so to just, again, make that effort, that's change. I've got to make an effort to change. And so the important piece of that, all that I talk, is that I can intellectually want that, but I'm powerless to do that unless I have a source of strength and power beyond myself, whom I call God. That's what I look to as my source of strength. So, I can have wouldn't it be nice to be a better daughter, blah, 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 and then there I go, you know what I mean? It's like I need that continued lifeline to be able to, have that come to fruition. So that was her amend. I'll just tell you maybe 2 more, because there's a lot of people that I'd like to really be able to listen to today as well. Let's see, I'll give you a doozy. Okay, there's let's make an amend to the ex-boyfriend. This one I didn't run by anyone, and certainly gave it a lot of thought. I'm not sure I was praying. I'm really thinking I wasn't, or I don't think I would have fallen that hole. But what I did is I contacted this guy that I had a thing with for a long time, and I was convinced that I had harmed him, and that we'll put that out of the picture right at this point. So, and now I guess what I should mention is I was married at the time, okay? So me being a married woman who's working a program of recovery contacted this man, and he contacted me back, met him to, again, oh geez, oh crow. I can see it coming now in hindsight, but long story short, I met him. It started a whole thing up again. And this was a very complicated and painful experience that I caused by contacting someone I had no business contacting, and I hurt a lot of people, which led to having to make more amends, some of which we read a little bit about in the text of, not being able to tell who, but what, or not, and just, again, like really bad idea. It's like, looking up an old flame or whatever, again, consulting with others. Some people, like, we kind of joke about it, but it's really not a joke. It's like some people just don't darken their door is the amend, like leave them alone. And I'm one of these people like poke, but it's like, just leave him alone. It's Christmas, okay. So the last one I will tell you about, I'll give you a sideline. The financial ones, yeah, I got tons of them. No, not a good time, but you just chip away at them. I had the idea that I was giving them my money, you know what I mean? When I'm paying people back money I owe, like I'm giving them, it's like, and somebody said, or I read, like, well, that's really not your money, it's their money. Oh, okay. It's my sister. I have a sister who is a year and a half older than me that has not spoken to me for 25 years, directly as a result of something I did. And I had done many things to my sister. We were drinking buddies. We were very close, but again, when Kathy gets bombed, I don't know what I do, honestly. I do all kinds of stuff and say shit and just, I don't know. It's not good. It's not pretty. And then when you don't remember and you go, oh, okay. So, and then the interesting thing is when I'm not bombed, I do that too. Yikes. So why wouldn't anybody want to hang out with me? Well, this sister, it was just, I'd be here all day trying to tell you the ins and outs of it, but the reality of it is, because of some stuff that I had said and done, which I really, at the time, and this is just the truth, was clueless to how harmful what I was doing was to her, because I was so fixated on me and why weren't you there for me? Why didn't you come to my shower? You know what I mean? Not thinking, well, the woman just had an abortion like a few months ago and blah, blah, blah. And maybe it was difficult for her, you know what I mean? Maybe it wasn't about me. And so I kind of gave an ultimatum, if you don't do this, then just don't bother. And guess what? She hasn't bothered. So over the years, I've first started out with a little bit of like, let me send you a letter, or, wah, wah, wah. Well, the book tells us, we don't grovel, we don't crawl, we just, try to keep your dignity while you're going about the tasks of trying to rebuild things. So, somewhere along the line, now mind you, 25 years is a long time, and I've been practicing this particular way of living 14 or 15 years. And that's just to say, made lots of mistakes and, learned a lot, certainly, but again, I'm going to keep it in the day. I got lots to learn and lots to still do. Like they say, more will be revealed. So there are a couple opportunities to just say, show up on her. at a family event or whatnot, and, like just like harangue her or follow her around, or, it's like, I realized you got to cut that stuff out. Like, that's, it's like, I need you to, like, let me off the hook. And that's not what it's about. It's like trying to be useful to her. So, okay, just back off. So, family events or whatnot, I just, learned to like kind of fade into the wallpaper or give her some space and whatnot. And over the years, I stopped trying to, I basically told her at one point, I know I've harmed you, and if you are ever willing to sit down and talk, I'd really appreciate and value the opportunity. And then left it, and that was years ago. So fast forward to this past year. She lives in Oregon, and she was in a house fire, and she was seriously injured, burnt, and life-flighted. And I heard this through my sister, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, oh, I got to do something. You know what I mean? I got to, like, and in the back of my mind, I think was, here's my chance. So I had a fantasy of like flying out there and going to her hospital bed and, like trying to like help her. And then she'd like look at me and realize, oh, you do love me. And, we'll just trot off into the coastline or something. I don't know. Well, you know what? That's probably, I have to pray about these things again, because you can see where the popcorn's popping in there. The truth is, I got no business going out there and like bothering her, especially if she's laying in an ICU unit. I'm like, hi, can I? You got a minute? Yeah, oh, geez, oh, crow. So, again, reel myself in. What can I do for her? Pray. That's what I can do. And there came a need that she had in her convalescing that, I ran by people that I could send her something, and like rather send it to the house. She didn't have to know it was from me or whatnot, and just continue to pray and leave the woman alone. Just leave her alone, continue to pray for her. These can be complicated. They can be really complicated. There's all different kinds. They give us lots of different situations in the text. They give us lots of different prayers and warnings and, basically telling us that this is a requirement. There's a requirement in here as well. So the amends that I have made and continue to make, or the living amends, where they're at today is, as part of my daily discipline, I pray for people. And so a group of people that I pray for are people that I have made amends to, or I continue to do living amends with or whatnot, as well as other people that God puts on my heart to pray for. And so, the learning experience for me is like that reality of the best thing that I can do for anyone, and particularly me, is to pray, is to keep God in the middle, in between what it is that, my bright idea is, or, what it is that I'm thinking I can fix or change. And so the last thing I just want to say about the amends themselves, besides making the appointment and doing the run through and accepting, responsibility, it's not about I'm sorry. Nobody wants to hear I'm sorry from me, that's for sure, because they've heard it before. I'm sorry, but can I have $10? You know what I mean? It's demonstrating a change, demonstrating a willingness to change, demonstrating I will, this is what you can expect from me, and then be there, like do that, be solid, be the person that, God has helped and fostered me to be. And then I'm supposed to ask, is there anything else? You know, like, is there anything else? Well, that's an interesting conversation too with people, but I'll let you have your own experience. Some people say no, some people are like, oh, that's good. Some people like, well, yeah, there is, and how about that? And it's a good experience because, for me, I'm an intelligent person, but I'm also kind of dense in some areas because I'm just not thinking that, wow, oh yeah, I did that to you. Okay, yeah, I just forgot about that. I didn't find this, and continue to not find it to be like a really, like a negative or a bad thing, because I know sometimes people will say, they see it up there and it's like, oh shit, I never, because the truth is, by the time you get there, you're ready for it, you're prepared for it, and not only in my own experience have I had really miraculous things happen as a result of amends, and again, I've got a whole story with my father. I've got loads of people that, if you ever want to talk about amends or you're working on some, happy to, give you my and share my experience with you around doing them, the good and the bad and the ugly, as far as that goes. So thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing from all of you.